Don't you think it's fascinating that one of the ways in which spheres interact is via continuous functions? Such functions are called homotopic if there is a continuous disintegration between one and the other. And if we regard homotopic functions as being equivalent, then they become an algebraic object called a group, or more precisely a homotopy group. Most English speakers probably didn't understand a word of what I just said. I didn't. My point is that language and fluency is a relative phenomenon. No one will ever be completely fluent in a language like English, for example, because it's spoken by so many different people in so many different contexts all around the world. You might be a native English speaker, for example, but that's not going to help you understand a math professor talking about topology if you haven't taken a math course. And I think that there are two myths about fluency in language that make learning language much scarier than it has to be. The first myth about fluency is that it's purely linguistic or grammatical. So fluency is not cultural, it's not contextual, and it's not physical, right? There's no fluency in a hand wave. When I studied in Italy for a short while, I learned some Italian, and when I was there, I kept hearing the word ridotto. And I looked it up in dictionaries, but I couldn't find it until I asked one of my friends what ridotto meant, and he said that that's the Italian word for the red hot chili peppers. But if you don't have that cultural context, then that word wouldn't mean anything to you. So in that case, fluency wasn't about some definition, it wasn't about some grammar that you learned in a book, it was about a cultural context. The second myth about fluency is that it's a zero-sum game, right? Or it's a finishing line that you cross or something. So in other words, you have fluency or you don't have fluency. But language is something that happens continually and gradually. You learn it and you become more fluent. You talk to people, you learn more about the culture, and it opens up and it grows and matures. It's a living thing. And people talk about learning language like they're cooking a hamburger. You know, you begin rare, then you pass a test and you're medium rare, and then you pass another test and you're medium, and then you're done. You're well done. You're fluent. Congratulations. And when I was in school, I internalized those kind of lessons. I think a lot of people, at least in the United States, do. And it's this kind of drill sergeant mentality, right? If you pass enough tests, then you will become fluent. The rules of language and someone's fluency in language always happens within a context, and they happen relative to that context. So there are rules in language, right? There is grammar, but you learn those rules so that you can forget them. A friend of mine said that he felt like a tiger in a cage because of his English, because he didn't feel fluent. And so the idea is to forget that cage. Your use of language changes and matures, or it fades and grows, but it doesn't stay the same, and there aren't any hard lines. I'll give you one more example. Let's imagine that there's a graduate student who's studied Arabic and can read very complicated texts, mathematical texts in Arabic, but he doesn't know the word for a grocery store. And then let's say that there's a traveler who went through Morocco and Tunisia for several months, and she learned Arabic colloquially and imperfectly and on the fly, just in the context. But she can navigate the bus system perfectly. Now, which of these two do you think is more fluent?
Click on the language you would like to learn.